お天道様に向かって走るぞよー。
If you just watched this short TikTok video, there seems to be nothing much special about it. Just another one of the many TikTok videos uploaded by the young individuals in Japan. However, after people found out who she really was and what she has done, this video began to spread across Japan, and arguably, this very video can be considered as one of the worst TikTok videos ever uploaded. To find out why this video is so horrifying, we have to go a bit back in time and understand the timeline of this young person's life. In Japan's Shizuoka prefecture, there was a girl named Watanabe Kanna attending a public middle school in her local neighborhood. According to the words of her old classmate, it seemed that she was doing papakatsu, or compensated dating, with older men from her first year in middle school. Her classmate confesses that everyone thought that Kanna was a more yabai, or the more dangerous type based on quite a few things. First, her classmate said that Kanna was often caught with stealing the items of her classmates. And to add to that, her classmate confesses that Kanna seemed to be the type of person who was quite delusional, to put it most mildly. For instance, as we can see from a lot of her old photos that has been revealed on the Japanese side of the internet, we believe a lot of us can agree on the fact that she's not the most visually attractive type of person. However, Kanna believed herself to be this extremely physically attractive individual. Her classmate says that when old perverts paid money to her for compensated dating, she genuinely believed that this was because she had this type of magnetic attractiveness to her in which men could not resist, and actually went around boasting at school of how she had an adult boyfriend who was 25 years old, etc., without the slightest of doubt that such of her boyfriends were scum of the earth as predators who were interested in getting their way with clueless first-year middle schoolers such as Kanna. And furthermore, Japan being the type of place that is known for having a set of rowdy teenagers, such ill-intended male teenagers at her middle school often played a game with each other, where the boy who loses the bet as a punishment now had to go and fake confess their love to an ugly girl such as Kanna. Now, if this was any other person, they would most likely be infuriated. However, with Kanna, she once again tricked her mind into believing that all these boys were confessing to her because she again had this irresistible charm to her, and is told to have went all the way physically with many of the male teenagers who confessed to her as a prank. Now, time passes, and it is said that Kanna got married around the time when she graduated from high school and gave birth to her first daughter. And with that, her name changed legally from Watanabe Kanna to Asanuma Kanna. And according to a neighbor of Kanna, back in her hometown of Shizuoka, Kanna's family still supported her around this time regarding her decision to be married and become a mother at such an early age. Kanna's mother is even told to have said, "I'm becoming a grandmother in my 40s. Isn't that great?" However, as we can probably already tell by now from her unusual childhood, she, quite frankly, does not seem like the type of person who could be a normal housewife and a mother. And such assumptions did not turn out to be wrong. One of her acquaintances said that she was cheating on her husband with not just one, not just two, but with 3 men, while abandoning to care for her newly born daughter altogether, as her baby daughter was left to either Kanna's husband or Kanna's mother to be taken care of. Now, her husband, finding out that she was cheating on him with 3 other men, obviously filed for divorce. But still, with Kanna being the mother of his daughter, her now ex-husband was nice enough to loan her some money. Kanna is also said to have borrowed 150,000 Japanese yen from one of the men whom she was cheating on her husband with, providing reasons such as how she wanted to turn her life around by getting a job, which needed her to get qualifications, which meant that she needed money to go to school to study for such qualifications, etc., etc. So with all this money that she borrowed from her ex-husband, as well as other men whom she cheated on her husband with, she once again left her daughter in the hands of her ex-husband or her family, and left her hometown of Numazu, Shizuoka, to the bigger city of Osaka in 2021. But then, it goes without saying that once she arrived in Osaka, she did not spend the borrowed money on studying for qualifications or preparing to get a job. She became widely known around the entertainment district in Osaka as a host mania, and it is said that there was no host club in Osaka that did not know her name. She began to be known around the entertainment district in Osaka as a problematic individual who did not pay her due bills to the host clubs and jumped without paying, and was thus blacklisted from the majority of the host clubs. The amount of Kanna's unpaid bills to the host clubs of Osaka got so large to the point that the hosts from Osaka went all the way to her parents' house in Shizuoka to ask her parents to pay for the bills. So we can say that for Kanna's parents, life was a living nightmare because of their daughter. Kanna just left her daughter in the hands of her parents for them to take care of. And to add to that, the parents constantly had to be harassed by the hosts from Osaka because of their daughter and her criminal tendency to jump from the host clubs without paying. And during her problematic time in Osaka, Kanna is said to have met Takami, a male host working in Osaka's entertainment district. Wars say that Takami himself was considered in Osaka's host world as one of the more problematic male hosts, where the majority of his client base were girls who could not pay their bills. And one of such of his clients was Kanna. And the two seem to have really hit it off together, and their acquaintance in Osaka say that their codependency went on to become stronger by the day. But then in August 2022, this notorious couple suddenly disappeared from Osaka. The reason for this was that, as Kanna had such a large amount of unpaid bills in which she owed to the host clubs in Osaka with having absolutely no way to pay it back, she and her host boyfriend Takami decided to run away to her hometown of Nemazu, Shizuoka in order to hide themselves. But despite the fact that Kanna has now returned back to her hometown, she could not contact her parents or relatives due to her parents' much understanding stance of wanting nothing to do with their daughter anymore. So it is said that Kanna and Takami is said to have stayed in an internet cafe in front of Nemazu Station. An internet cafe resident who has been staying at the particular internet cafe where Kanna and Takami stayed in said that he started seeing them from around September of 2022 and how he thought that they were just a typical young couple who were staying in an internet cafe. He says that Kanna seemed like she had a large stomach, so he thought that Kanna was perhaps, in his words, eating too much. But it turns out, her large stomach may not have been all due to the exorbitant amount of food that she ate. We'll soon get to this part later. Fast forward to next year on May 27th, 2023, at around 6:45 a.m., a man who was fishing on Senbonhama Beach in Nemazu called the police and made an absolutely horrifying report. He said, "There's a corpse of a baby being burnt on the beach." After investigation, the police announced around a week later, on June 2nd, 2023, that the suspects were Kanna Asanuma and Naoki Takami. It turned out after DNA testing that Kanna was the mother of the baby that was tragically found on the beach, meaning that Kanna and her host boyfriend Takami, soon after Kanna gave birth to the baby, decided to do the absolutely unthinkable. When looking at the timeline of events, it could be very likely that when Kanna uploaded her dance video on TikTok, she could have been already pregnant at the time. Now, whether she was aware of the fact that she was pregnant at the time of uploading this video, we cannot say for sure. But it is absolutely terrifying to think that this seemingly ordinary looking girl with an innocent looking smile can also be the type of person who can make the type of evil decision to do what she has done to her newborn child. Throughout our research on the case of Kanna Asanuma, we were actually surprised with quite a few things. First, we are surprised to see that many in Japan actually partly sympathized, or at least attempted to understand, why Kanna grew up to be the type of person that she became. In one of the videos created by a Japanese YouTuber who discussed her case, many of the top comments with the most likes were ones which blamed the ill-intended male teenagers during her childhood who made fun of Kanna for how ugly she is, fake confessing their love to her as a punishment among themselves when one loses a bet, then go around boasting at school of how they still physically went all the way with her and laughed about how gullible she was. And I completely agree with the majority opinion here on the fact that they are absolute garbage of human beings and how being exposed to such an environment of constant bullying and humiliation from such a young age could have indeed led Kanna to develop into a twisted human being. Many in Japan also rightfully criticized the criminal, shameless old man whom Kanna met during middle school, who was willing to conduct papakatsu or compensated dating with Kanna when she was just a middle schooler, for crying out loud. And such abnormal interactions could have again let Kanna grow into the warped adult in which she turned out to become. However, with all due respect, it seems that many of the YouTubers in Japan often did not research all sides of the story, which partly contributes as to why we see a lot of such sympathetic comments for Kanna. I believe if you're Japanese and can search on YouTube regarding this case using the language, you'll know what I mean. Which I completely understand, by the way. Some of the information that we have may have came out after they uploaded their videos, or they may have just wanted to keep their videos short for the sake of completing the edit and upload their videos as soon as possible. So again, nothing wrong with this, as after all, if you're a full-time YouTuber doing this endeavor for a living, upload frequency and speed is one of the most important elements there is to keep your channel going. But with that said, if we are to really dig deeper into the case of Kanna Asanuma beyond the superficial level of understanding and look deeper into the details of her life, it becomes exponentially more difficult to label her situation as a simple case where a victim of childhood suffering who was unable to overcome her past traumas just went on to commit evil acts. After Kanna Asanuma and Naoki Takami was arrested for the indescribable crime committed on Senbonhama Beach, Kanna's ex-husband brought the courage to talk to the media for the first time with Bunshin Online, a Japanese online news media outlet. Now, we are aware of the fact that Kanna's husband filed for divorce with Kanna after finding out that she was cheating on him with 3 other men, at least as far as he knows, and that even after the divorce, he was kind-hearted enough to loan her some money, knowing that while he detested her for what she has done, she was still the mother of his one and only daughter. And it is not like Kanna's ex-husband was well off financially either. It is said that Kanna's ex-husband was only 18 years old at the time when he married Kanna. When Kanna told him that she wanted to have a baby early, Kanna's ex-husband boldly decided to drop out of high school in order to work and save up for marriage. He did not give up his education entirely though, as he states that he participated in Japan's correspondence high school system, which is a system in Japan where a high school dropout can still earn a high school diploma in 3 years through means such as earning credits through online classes and submitting reports through mail. So through this, we can clearly see that Kanna's ex-husband was deeply in love with Kanna for him to decide to drop out of high school in order to begin working early to save up for marriage and stabilize their future, as well as the fact that he's most likely a diligent, hardworking guy who is willing to still attend online classes and self-study while also working full-time. But then, while her husband was busy with setting up their future, working during the day and attending online classes at night, what did Kanna do during this time? Go to love hotels with multiple other men. So when he saw the footage of his wife walking into a love hotel through his car black box recorder, he must have felt as if his life was tearing apart. Now, during the time when Kanna was married, she was living in the house of her ex-husband with his family. But now that she was caught with cheating and has underwent divorce procedures, it should have been the case that she moved out of the house of her now ex-husband, right? But then her ex-husband, at this point almost looking like an angel, also knew that Kanna was working part-time at a factory at the time and did not have the money to move out. So he allowed Kanna to live in his family's house with his parents for several months even after the divorce. Now, why Kanna did not move back to her parents' house, we do not know for sure, as there is not a lot of information out there regarding this. However, it does seem that while Kanna's mother seemed to be a kind enough person, again we do not know the full details, but at least based on the fact that Kanna's mother welcomed the fact that she became a grandmother and has taken turns in taking care of Kanna's daughter along with her ex-husband, while Kanna was busy chasing hosts in Osaka, it seems that Kanna and her father were not on the best of terms. One of Kanna's neighbors told reporters at Bunshin Online that Kanna's father was the type of person who threw cigarette butts onto the neighbor's garden without any shame. And although this alone is not nearly enough evidence to definitively claim that Kanna's father was a horrible individual, as stated by this one Japanese commenter, you really also cannot possibly be a good person and also be a person who constantly throws cigarette butts on someone else's property in a shameless fashion. And during our research of Kanna's case, we also came across the old Twitter account of Kanna Asanuma. Now, most of the posts seem to have been deleted, with there only being a few posts made in the year 2014 remaining in her Twitter account. However, from one of Kanna's posts made in 2014, we have found a post in which she made where she said, to quote her exact words, "I am angry at my dad's attitude towards me." This is again not nearly enough evidence to claim that Kanna was a victim of domestic violence or any abuse of that nature from her father. But at the same time, if we connect the dots with the information that we do have of the fact that Kanna's father was not the nicest of individual as stated by the neighbor, and the type of Twitter posts in which Kanna made while she was younger, we can at least safely assert that Kanna and her father did not have the best relationship between them. So with that said, if Kanna was like any other ordinary person, she would have been extremely thankful at both her ex-husband and his family for allowing her to live in their house even after all that she has done. I think it's safe to say that her ex-husband's parents must have been so upset as well. This girl just ruined their son's life, only to claim that she has no money and nowhere else to go, so has to stay in their house. However, Kanna then did something which really went beyond any realm of common sense and would make anybody infuriated. One day, Kanna's ex-husband received a credit card bill at his parents' house in which he did not recognize. And it turned out, Kanna used the personal information of her ex-husband's father to create a new credit card and made a cash advance of around 500,000 Japanese yen. The things that she continues to do just absolutely leaves you speechless. One day, the piggy bank in which Kanna's ex-husband's father saved his 500 yen coins in was seen damaged with money missing. Turned out, Kanna got her hands into the closet where the piggy bank was hidden in. And if you know about many of the senior citizens in Asia, collecting coins in their piggy banks is one of their small but quite important joys of their lives. So it is said that the ex-husband's father got extremely angry over this theft, but still did not kick her out of the house as they understood her financial standing. But then one day, the ex-husband's father's Rolex went missing. The family, obviously knowing who the culprit will be at this point, asked Kanna whether she stole the watch. But this time, Kanna initially lied and said, "No, I did not steal the watch." So the ex-husband's family reported this to the police as a case of burglary. And during police investigation, Kanna confessed that yes, she did in fact steal the watch. But then, she still gave excuses for why she did what she did, such as how she was threatened by a male customer from the hostess club where she used to work in to steal the watch. Then even after this, even after being investigated by the police, her ex-husband says that he found how his Gucci shoulder bag went missing. When he questioned Kanna on whether she stole it, she just admitted it this time and said that she has stolen the bag. So if we get all of this straight, she got caught with cheating on her husband with 3 other men, while her husband literally dropped out of high school in order to work and save up for marriage, as well as to financially prepare for the arrival of their daughter. But then, her ex-husband and his family was nice enough to let her still live with them even after all the suffering in which she has done onto her ex-husband, which again most likely broke the hearts of his parents as well. Then she steals the personal information of her ex-husband's father, creates a credit card under his name, then takes out 500,000 yen in cash. Obviously, she never repaid any of this money to her ex-husband's father. The family finds out, still forgives her. Then she steals the piggy bank of her ex-husband's father. The family finds out, is more than rightfully infuriated, but still allow her to continue living in the house, believing that she has learned her lesson this time and will not steal again. Then she steals the Rolex of her ex-husband's father, initially lies, then gets taken to the police, only to admit that she has stolen it. But being the saints that the ex-husband's family members are, they still do not kick her out of the house as they know that Kanna has nowhere else to go. Then she goes on to steal the Gucci shoulder bag of her ex-husband. At this point, it is basically ineffable of how much her ex-husband and his family had to suffer because of Kanna. And in all honesty, Kanna seems to be the prime example of an individual with a case of kleptomania, a psychological condition where a person feels an overpowering, uncontrollable urge to steal. And after considering all information regarding her case, I believe this was the very root of all of her life's overarching problems. Her psychological illness of not being able to resist her spontaneous urges. She most likely knows that she has a hardworking husband who loves her very much and is wrong for her to cheat. But when she sees a pretty man whom she finds to be attractive, she cannot resist the spontaneous urge to sleep with the man. She knows that she should not steal from her ex-husband's family, but when there is that Rolex in front of her, she cannot resist that spontaneous urge to take that Rolex. Even when she abandoned her baby daughter and left to Osaka, same case. She knows that she has to work for a living now and repay all her financial debt to her ex-husband's father for all the money and items that she stole, as well as to the man whom she cheated on her husband with, who is said to have also borrowed Kanna with 150,000 Japanese yen. But then, she walks by this host club billboard in the night entertainment district in Osaka, sees a bunch of pretty men on the billboard, then cannot resist that spontaneous urge to walk into the host club and splurge money on these hosts. Money in which she did not even have. It is said that in Osaka, she borrowed money from several people by using her very baby daughter back in her hometown as bait. One man from Osaka who borrowed money to Kanna confessed in an interview that she cried in front of him and said that if I do not pay back 200,000 yen to the loan sharks, they will take my baby away from me. The man said that Kanna was extremely realistic with her performance to the point that her story almost made him cry. So he said that he could not refuse but borrow the money to her as there were children involved. But what he obviously did not know at the time was that Kanna was completely lying. Kanna did not have to borrow any money to raise her baby daughter, as the entire custody of her daughter was in the hands of her ex-husband, who was doing all the raising. When her ex-husband informed Kanna that he was to have custody of their baby daughter, Kanna simply replied with a, "I understand." Kanna's ex-husband states that even he was surprised at how Kanna really did not give a single care about losing custody of her daughter, as I believe he most likely at least expected some struggle over custody or a hint of sadness from her. But then there was Kanna, who did not show the smallest degree of anguish when she gave up custody of her baby daughter, now crying and lying in front of strangers of how her one and only daughter, all of a sudden now, her raison d'etre, will be taken away from her if she does not give 200,000 yen to the loan sharks in a few hours. And that was just one of the many ways in which Kanna and her host boyfriend Takami manipulated and defrauded money out of people during their notorious time in Osaka. She most likely knew that using her very daughter, the daughter whom she had absolutely no problem giving up, as bait in her elaborate stories to defraud people out of money was an abominable thing to do. But then, when she sees a gullible-looking person who seems to have some money on them, she just cannot resist that urge to lie and manipulate money out of them. And if we go over every single reported story of how she and Takami defrauded money out of people during their time in Osaka, this video would literally have to be 2 hours long. But we believe by far the worst way in which she manipulated money out of people only to never pay them back was this one, using her daughter, whom she did not even provide a little bit of fight for to keep custody, as the bait to make people let their guards down and sympathize with her situation. A single mother from Shizuoka who was working desperately hard in Osaka to raise her baby daughter, a situation that we all know by now is far from true. Now, before we move on with the video, please have a listen at the words from today's sponsor, Toker Treat and Sakurako, presented by Helen.
日本は桜が満開で美しい季節になりました。今日のトピックに入る前、日本のお花見とスナックが大好きなあると私を幸せな気持ちにさせてくれた特別なボックスをご紹介したいと思います。そのボックスは東京トリット桜子です。東京トリット桜子は最大20種類のお菓子が詰まったボックスを我が家の玄関先まで配送してくれる日本スナックの玄関購読システムを提供しています。東京トリットは日本現地特選のスナックやユニークな限定版、季節ごとに特色あるスナックが組み込まれたボックスです。こちら東京トリンの夜桜テーマのボックスです。桜のクリームケーキと空気など日本の桜の祭りが感じられる限定スナックといろいろなお菓子、甘いものがたくさん入っています。そして桜子、こちらには日本のお菓子メーカーをサポートする日本の伝統的なお菓子や職人が作ったお菓子など日本の伝統を存分に感じることができる特別なボックスであります。桜子もシーズンに合わせた桜の餅、カステラ、せんべいなどといろいろな伝統のお菓子が入っています。どの国にいても海を越えて日本の特別なお菓子が詰まった作り物を受け取り気分は素晴らしいものです。月間購読で毎月1回異なる特別なお菓子ボックスをお受け取ることもできるし、月ごとに構成される楽しいテーマのお菓子ボックスを一度だけ体験することもできますので、私のように特別なプレゼントを受け取る気分を味わいたい方、または今月の日本のお花見が楽しめる夜桜ボックスを体験したい方は、ぜひ以下のリンクから購入してください。本当に忘れられない思い出になるはずです。
And last but not least, we all know what the most unforgivable act in which Kanna has committed based on her spontaneous urges. According to Miss A, an acquaintance of both Kanna and Takami, testified in an interview that she received a message from Kanna through Line where she said that her baby was stillborn. However, through police DNA autopsy, it turned out that the baby was still alive at the time of birth and was not stillborn. And Miss A states that it seemed that Kanna was very much attached to the baby inside her womb while she was pregnant and took good care of her, making Miss A think that Kanna was determined to raise the baby well. Kanna was quite vocal about her pregnancy as well, posting a photo of her pregnancy test on social media in November 2022. It seems that Miss A and Kanna were indeed quite close, as a month later in December 2022, Kanna sent an echo photo to Miss A with a message saying, "The baby is bigger now since the previous checkup." A few months later, on February 2023, Kanna sent a video to Miss A of her baby moving inside her belly and was seen to have been undergoing a checkup at a hospital in Osaka. So with all of this considered, it does indeed seem, at least on the surface level, that Kanna did not want to make the same mistake in which she made with her first daughter and had the intention of raising the baby once she gave birth. But then, the circumstances in which she was in at the time was nowhere as peaceful as she would have hoped it to be. She already owed money to dozens of people in Osaka and back in her hometown. In fact, on the very day when the news of her indescribable crime got on the news, a host club owner from Osaka, let's call him Mr. H, testified in an interview that he was on his very way to an internet cafe in Nemazu to ask for a refund. Kanna is said to have owed over 3 million Japanese yen, or around 20,000 USD, to Mr. H's host club. Mr. H obviously did not get any of this money back, as Kanna has ran away to her hometown of Nemazu without the repayment. However, a few months later, Mr. H receives a bill for 120,000 yen under his name from an internet cafe near Nemazu Station. It turned out that Mr. H borrowed a GPS-attached smartphone that was contracted under his name to Kanna before, while she was still in Osaka. Mr. H states that he did this in order to track Kanna's whereabouts so that she does not run away with her host club bills unpaid, but he obviously failed as Kanna ran away anyways, and using Mr. H's phone, Kanna made a mobile payment to pay for her and Takami's internet cafe bills, in which they accumulated during their time hiding in Nemazu. So Kanna had hosts or host club owners such as Mr. H literally chasing her so that she pays the unpaid bills. It is said that there was even a line chat group named the Victims Association of Kanna and Takami, consisting of people who were angry about not getting their money back. And many were most likely undeniably furious, as there was Kanna posting TikTok videos with the biggest smile on her face, or going to onsen trips with Takami and posting it on social media without paying back a single cent to almost all of their creditors. And talking about Kanna's host boyfriend Takami, it is said that Kanna and Takami did not have the best of relationship between the two. According to Miss A, Kanna and Takami often fought and broke up. It seems that they had trust issues as well, based on how they used a public location sharing app to keep track of each other's whereabouts, and using other people to verify whether Kanna or Takami was indeed at the spot in which the app showed them to be. And with Takami being almost a literal kid and having no life skills of his own to make a living other than extorting money out of people together with Kanna, not to mention their severe trust issues, it could have been the case that Kanna just could not see herself raising a child with this young ex-host, especially through the hard times in which they were facing in front of them as well, of having to repay a mountain of debt to dozens of people in Osaka and in her hometown while raising their newborn baby at the same time. So in this overwhelming circumstance, we believe Kanna, again this is just our subjective take based on the information that we do have, that despite her initial intentions of wanting to raise the baby, have received a spontaneous urge, that urge which has got herself into so much trouble throughout her life. That spontaneous urge being taking action to just have the baby not be there anymore. And we believe you already know at this point that for Kanna, when there is a momentary impulse, it does not just stop there inside her head. She actually carries them out, regardless of how small or how grave that urge is. So we believe that her chronic mental condition of being unable to resist that urge inside her head, rather than stopping at the stage of cheating on her husband with multiple men or at the stage of kleptomania, now tragically has went to that irreversible, unforgivable stage in the one of taking away the life of her own child. Now that we're aware of the details of the life of Kanna Asanuma, what can we then take away from the story of her life? I believe our first point of takeaway is one of a more personal level that goes beyond national boundaries. I was never a fan of Japan's shogunai, or it is what it is, it cannot be helped mindset. I believe the mindset, while definitely having its benefits, still partly portrays an idea of defeatism that is furtively ingrained in many areas of the Japanese society, leading people to just live through the injustices or put a blind eye on the injustices suffered by others, rather than speak up against them and fix the actual problem. However, through the case of Kanna Asanuma, what we can observe is that, as cold-hearted as this may sound, some people just cannot be helped, and the best thing we can do is to stay away from them as much as we can. Yes, Kanna's kleptomania and her inability to fight other spontaneous urges inside her head could have indeed been caused or exacerbated by childhood traumas of being shamed and bullied. And the perpetrators, such as the male teenagers at her school who caused her to have this trauma, definitely do need to be called out and be chastised and punished. But at the same time, there were still people who cared for and even attempted to love Kanna, such as her ex-husband, who embraced Kanna for who she was. Her young ex-husband gave up the remainder of his life in high school to begin working early to stabilize for their future, as Kanna herself told him that she wanted to have a child early. But then, while her husband was out working, Kanna betrayed him by cheating on him in the worst way possible, entering into love hotels with multiple men. Her ex-husband and his family, even after all that they've suffered due to her existence, still tried to understand and help her even after the divorce. But then, Kanna betrayed them again and again and again.
But you can't do this to me.
She already abandoned her first daughter so that she could head to Osaka's night entertainment district and mess around with pretty hosts. So when she conceived her second child, we would have naturally thought she has already learned a lesson by having custody taken away from her first child by being irresponsible. So this time, now that she's older and has matured, she'll raise the second child well. But we already know what she has done to her second child. So in almost a fatalistic sense, her being arrested in Numazu by the Japanese police was an event that was long time coming. A fate in which, quite literally, nobody could have helped her to get out of. Dark landmine fashioned, TikTok dance video making on the streets, heavy Photoshop filters, addicted to hosts in the night entertainment district. When a typical Japanese person hears of such phrases, they immediately think, Toyoko Kid. To elaborate, Toyoko kids in Japan are troubled teenagers or young adults gathered in Tokyo's night entertainment district of Kabukicho and has been rising as a social issue in Japan in the recent years. And the sad truth about the current Japanese society is that when a problematic Japanese teenager or a young adult such as Kanna feels lost in life, Japan conveniently has a hub, the night entertainment districts, that is located in each of their big regional cities, where young people such as Kanna consider as their de facto place to head to and make their life into more of a misery than it already is. I mean, Kanna got into Osaka's entertainment district with just a debt from her ex-husband and her cheating partner, to having to run away from Osaka for owing 3 million Japanese yen to just one host club alone, not to mention to dozens of others whom she borrowed or defrauded money out of, all in just a span of 2 years or so. And this is basically a nationwide pattern in Japan for the troubled youth. For young troubled individuals living in the Kanto region, they can conveniently head to Tokyo and its red light district of Kabukicho and basically ruin their life at an accelerated pace with host club addiction, underground idol addiction, papakatsu, substance overdose, you name it. For young troubled individuals living on the island of Hokkaido, they can conveniently head to Sapporo and their red light district of Susukino. You guys get the idea. It's just that we know the very details of the life of Kanna Asanuma due to the heinous crime in which she committed. But at the same time, there are currently thousands, or potentially tens of thousands of latent Kannas on the streets of the nation's night entertainment districts in Japan, ruining their lives at an horrifying pace. And what saddens us is that when news in the likes of the one of Kanna Asanuma and her burning of her newborn, appears in the news in Japan, it gives more reason and justification for the Japanese general public to think in the lines of, you see, look how crazy this Kanna girl is. And all these TikTok video making, host addicted young individuals on the streets of the nation's red light districts in Tokyo, Osaka, Sapporo, and the likes that look like Kanna, although they may not be as problematic to the same degree as Kanna Asanuma, are still fundamentally problematic, delinquent beings that cannot be helped with in the first place. But let us have a look at the case of Mocha, for instance. This is a homeless girl in the middle of Tokyo's R-Light district who was taken physical advantage of by her father from such a young age and thus left her home because she really could not go back and suffer another day with her father. And thankfully, there are the admirable individuals in Japan, such as Haruhi Okada, our representative of the Japan Youth Mental Support Association, who attempt to provide support to the troubled youth of Japan, as in the case of Mocha, who have suffered from childhood traumas, such as parents' divorce, loneliness, bullying, assault, abusive parents, etc. Her NPO provides free consultations as well as employment support for these troubled youth on the streets of Japan. For the audience in our channel who wish to support her endeavors or read her blogs, we'll put the links on the description of this video. However, when people from NPOs such as Haruhi Okada attempt to gather public support to fight such societal issues, many in Japan can point out and say, why help them? These are all delinquent teenagers or young adults who are just bad-natured and really cannot be helped with one way or another. and what they're saying is partly right. Let's not get that wrong. As after all, our first takeaway message with the case of Kanna Asanuma was that people such as Kanna, as much as we would not like to admit for the sake of our need to believe in the good of people, just really, literally cannot be helped. So we can gain a degree of insight from the case of Kanna Asanuma that the problem of the host or underground idol addicted TikTok dance video making troubled youth in Japan on the streets of the nation's big night entertainment districts is truly a complex problem for Japan, where it's hard to provide a clear, definitive opinion on just due to our inability to know the clear proportion of these troubled youth who are like Kanna Asanuma, as in the case of not only being unable to be helped, but are the types of people who will actively go on to make the lives of others around them into complete hell as well, or are like Mocha, who can indeed be helped and be headed to the right direction with the guidance from the right people, such as Haori Okada. Now, we will continue to emphasize the fact that Kanna Asanuma and her host boyfriend, Naoki Takami, deserve to spend multiple years of their lives in jail, hopefully a lifetime, as the type of crime in which they have committed is not a one of a nature where you can look and say, let them serve time and give them another chance. You just cannot give such second chances to an individual who has burned their very own. We're not even gonna say it. And if various negative news involving the landmine fashioned, TikTok video making, host addicted, troubled young individuals of Japan on the streets of the nation's night entertainment districts continue to receive negative spotlight in the nation, whether it be with downright heinous type of crimes committed by Kanna Asanuma, or with news of physical violence, or with news of pharmaceutical substance overdose, which I personally believe that Kanna and Takami may have been potentially under as well during the time when they committed the crime, as I really cannot fathom how someone could commit such an inhumane crime with a sober mind. It will sadly once again continue to get exponentially harder for MPO personnel to gain public encouragement and help the TikTok video making troubled young individuals in Japan, whom unlike Kanna Asanuma, can be helped with.